Hello? Hello, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt your dinners. Sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt everyone's meal. I have some very brief remarks. We have a couple other speakers tonight, but it's a very short program, and we'll get you back to your dessert in just a few minutes. So I'm Scott Grinsell. I was a 2004 Marshall Scholar, and I'm currently the president of the AMS. I'd like to welcome our distinguished speakers, including Chicago Federal Reserve Board President and CEO Austan Goolsbee, who we'll hear from tomorrow, and our honoree this evening, Lisa Cook, and our guest from the British government, the Deputy General Counsel, and the MAC as well. And we owe a special thanks as well to the Clark Center at the Booth School of Business, and we're delighted to be partnering with them on this year's Marshall Forum. This event would not have been possible without all the support we've gotten from the university, which has been fantastic, and we're really thankful for that. And so we appreciate all the work from everyone in this room that went into that from the University of Chicago, which we're really, really thankful for. Thank you. So I'll make a couple of comments about the Marshall Plan, which you're meant to do at every Marshall event. And so the Marshall Plan, as everyone knows, was the financial commitment made by the United States government to Europe after the Second World War, and was, I think, in a sense, a revolutionary idea. The Marshall Plan reflected the creation of a new world order, which was based on certain key principles, including the importance of the rule of law, the transatlantic alliance, and international cooperation. And as you know, and as we've all heard 100 times of these things, the Marshall Scholarship was established by the British government to commemorate the Marshall Plan as a thank you to the United States for all these efforts. But I think the scholarship does more than just commemorate the Marshall Plan in name, but rather it embodies these principles of the rule of law and collaboration by giving life to them. And through this simple idea, bring groups of American students to the UK to advance knowledge and friendship and understanding. And this year marks the 70th anniversary of the first class of scholars. And I believe the program's original intention has borne out in reality as generations of scholars have forged close links between the two countries, and also through their lived experience both in the UK and eventually in careers in government, diplomacy, academia, and business, and many other areas of life. And I think in these areas have promoted international understanding in a lot of different ways. And I think these tangible and sometimes intangible ties between the two countries have proved to be extremely important to both the United States and the UK over all these decades. And so to me, this set of concepts is really at the core of both the scholarship and the AMS. And so, as all of you know, the AMS is a group of alumni who work to strengthen the US-UK understanding and the Marshall Scholarship through several different initiatives, including the Marshall Forums. The Marshall Forums we've done now is a number of these. They all focus on issues of global concern. At our meetings tomorrow, we'll be discussing a range of topics around economics, which are front of mind for many of us. And I'd like to provide a couple thoughts about why we're doing this and to put this in a little more of a broader context. We've been doing more programming like tomorrow in recent years, not just the forums, but through the Rule of Law program at the Supreme Court here in the US and in the UK, the Legislative Exchange, and other similar programming in cities across the US and in the UK. And I think these initiatives reflect the idea, consistent with the scholarship's kind of core values, that the AMS is an outward-looking organization that, among other things, aims to help to further a set of conversations around global issues. And I think our board has come to see these events as kind of helping to further these values and our community by bringing us into connection with people in kind of similar fields throughout the US and in the UK. And So I think we're all looking forward to discussions over the course of tonight at dinner and tomorrow on economic issues. I think they'll be great. We have a really fantastic lineup of speakers, and we're really thankful to all the speakers for dedicating time on a Tuesday in June to be with us tomorrow and tonight. And I have one small piece of good news to share with all of you, which is that we recently learned that King Charles has agreed to continue as patron of the AMS in his new role as king, which was not. This is apparently reviewed periodically by the palace. So this was a helpful kind of piece of the puzzle in the UK in terms of the visibility of the scholarship, and is a reflection of the contribution of so many marshals and also of Nell's tireless work as our executive director. So. Thank you, Nell, for all of your work. And so now I'd like to introduce my fellow Marshall scholars, Eric Budish and Jen No, who are both here at the University of Chicago, and they've both been instrumental in making this all possible tomorrow. And so thank you for all of your work in this process, and also for hosting us here at the university. So thank you. So Eric and Jen, I'll let you. I don't know who's speaking. Eric.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome to the University of Chicago. I'm just thrilled on behalf of Chicago Booth and the university and the Clark Center for Global Markets that we could collaborate with the Marshall community on this Marshall Forum. And I'm delighted to welcome so many fellow Marshall scholars and friends and colleagues and students from around the university, members of government, leaders in the private sector, and our other distinguished guests. My own time as a Marshall was from 2002 to 2004 at Nuffield College, Oxford, which for those of you who don't know it is a social science paradise. So it's only faculty and graduate students in the social sciences, and it's got the intensity and camaraderie that you'd expect comes from such a group. I want to acknowledge my supervisor there, my MPhil supervisor, Paul Klemperer, who remains a mentor and friend. I was a little bit unusual in that I was coming to economics graduate school from Wall Street. I did a stint as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs out of college. And for those of you who are near or in economics, academia, you'll know that time on Wall Street is something of a career hazard. Academia can be a bit insecure about being too real world. And what feels like the kind of hard work that makes an Excel model or a PowerPoint only bears a very faint resemblance to the hard work that goes into an academic paper. And academia is also deeply allergic to any form of slickness. But fortunately, I had only a tiny bit of that. But Paul really took me under his wing. He saw my experience as a positive, as something to be deeply curious about. And we had all these lunches and coffees together over my time in the MPhil, talking about what I'd learned at Goldman about how Wall Street auctions work, and he taught me everything he knew about auction theory and economics, and it's been my big part of my career ever since. And his wise mixture of careful economic theory, but with attention to the real world outside of the ivory tower, and then also obsessing about every last sentence and every last word within that sentence, has been with me ever since those years at Nuffield. Those were formative years in my journey to here, which is an economics paradise. The purpose of the Marshall Forum, as Scott talked about, is to come together to consider strategic and economic issues impacting the future of the U.S.-UK relationship. And this being the University of Chicago, this year's forum will include a special focus on economics and global financial markets. And this being both the Marshall community and the University of Chicago, you can expect a feast of ideas and a real intellectual intensity. I was talking about this with John Kane at the cocktail hour. These are two communities that have a lot of similarities to them, both intense in the best possible way. And with that, let me turn this over to my friend and fellow 2002 Marshall Scholar, Jen No.
Thanks, Eric. let me just add my pre-welcome to the welcome remarks to the University of Chicago and the beautiful Rubenstein Forum. It's been such a pleasure to reconnect with fellow Marshall scholars like Eric and Scott, and also to meet so many new ones, and I hope that our conversations get to continue. By way of introduction, my name is Janelle. I teach here at the law school at the University of Chicago, administrative law and related topics. I'm pleased to have members of our law school faculty and other distinguished lawyers able to join us for the forum tomorrow. We're going to be discussing rapidly evolving areas of regulation and legal practice in the fast evolving world of AI, artificial intelligence. And one of the things that I really appreciate about these forums is that they really aim to be cross-cutting. We're going to be focusing on current strategic and economic issues that are impacting our communities, our healthcare systems, our legal and business decisions, both in the US, in the UK, and around the world. As mentioned, I'm a 2002 Marshall Scholar where I had the life-changing opportunity to study political philosophy at Oxford for 3 years, 2 at New College, and then my 3rd at Nuffield as well. I understand that this year is the 70th year that Marshall Scholars will have had the opportunity to cross the Atlantic, form these lifelong friendships, and learn important ideas from our British friends and allies. And on a personal level, the Marshall Scholarship was so meaningful to me in so many ways, but I will just briefly mention 2. First, it gave the opportunity for this girl from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, who did not have many opportunities to study abroad growing up. I didn't study abroad in college. Really a chance to see the world, understand how America was perceived in it, sometimes, often for the better, sometimes for the worse. The American invasion of Iraq occurred while I was abroad. To appreciate the vast influence of British ideas, a bit more on that later, and watch a lot of British TV, much of which I continue to enjoy today. For the record, the British office is way better than the American office, and for those of you that have seen it, how great is the show Fleabag? If you have not seen that, I highly recommend it. It's a really fun show. Second, I can think of no better place to study political philosophy than in England, home to luminaries like John Locke, David Hume, John Stuart Mill. I still remember to this day the moment coming across the grave of Isaiah Berlin at Oxford, and it's just so striking how much his ideas about freedom continue to influence American political and legal thought. As probably all of you know, one of Berlin's many influential thoughts was that there is not just one concept of liberty, but actually 2, right? Negative and positive. Negative liberty is the absence of obstacles, barriers, or constraints. Positive liberty, he argued, is the possibility of acting in such a way as to take control of one's life and realize one's fundamental purposes. And this distinction, so eloquently clarified by Isaiah Berlin, continues to inform American legal policy debates, whether the sole purpose of government is to ensure a minimal notion of protecting negative liberty, thus justifying vast deregulation and dismantling of the administrative state. I just spent 2 years in the Biden administration working on regulatory issues, and so these policy debates are real. Or, by contrast, whether its role is to ensure the optimal amount of public health and safety to allow for human flourishing. To be able to articulate and have a vocabulary for these ideas is just one of the many legacies, I think, of British legal and philosophical thought. So with those very brief reflections, I'm now delighted to hand things over for the welcome remarks from John Murphy, who has served as the Deputy Consul General for the British Consulate General in Chicago since 2023, previously as the Head of Trade at the British Embassy in Seoul, and as a leader of the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office's Global Response Center. Thanks so much, and welcome again.
Thank you, Jen, Eric, and Scott, and good evening. I know you've all been well and truly welcome to Chicago, but let me add my welcome to this wonderful city. And I think it's fair to say that summer is upon us. It's taken a while, but it's well and truly here. Good evening, and first of all, I'd like to say thank you all for coming this evening. I'd also like to pass on the regrets of the Consul General, Alan Gogbashian, who's out of state at the moment. He's a passionate advocate for both Chicago and for the Marshall Scholarship. I know that he would have loved to have been here this evening. However, the baton passes to me, and I'm extremely honoured to be here with you tonight. And we're excited to welcome the Marshall Forum here to Chicago with a focus on economics. And Chicago has a long history of being at the heart of the US economy, from setting up of a Federal Reserve Bank here in 1914. And we're delighted to have a member of their Board of Governors, Lisa Cook, here with us and speaking to us this evening. And to being the centre of industry with 35 Fortune 500 companies based here. And today Chicago boasts a higher economic output than Switzerland. And Chicago was also a fundamental part of the US's response to World War II. The steel mills in the city of Chicago alone accounted for 20% of all steel production in the United States and 10% of global production during the Second World War. Indeed, more steel was produced here than in the whole of the United Kingdom, and that was central to the war effort and to its eventual outcome. And as we saw at the poignant D-Day commemorations recently, 80 years on, we are fortunate to still have members of the generation who gave so much to protect our freedom and democracy among us, to serve as a living reminder of why we must all continue to work for stability and peace in everything that we do. But inevitably, we won't have those heroes among us forever, which is why it's so important that through the Marshall Scholarship, the UK government has sought to ensure that we continue to celebrate and spread those values of freedom and democracy. Even 70 years on, from the first Marshall Scholars making their journeys to the UK, still recovering from war, the legacies they spread of transatlantic cooperation and solidarity lives and grows as they return to the US to forge new bonds built on that cooperation. Now, at this point, I could say something about the scale of our cooperation on defence and international security, noting that our troops train, exercise and fight hand in glove, and that we are proud to host around 20,000 US service personnel in the UK. Together we have faced global challenges from the Cold War to combating extremism and promoting peace and security around the world. But I hope you'll forgive me for taking this opportunity to sort of give a more personal reflection on what Marshall Scholarships has come to mean to me. At the British Consulate here in Chicago, we have the privilege of managing the scholarship selection process for 13 states across the Midwest. And this region consistently attracts the highest number of applications and showcasing the incredible talent and ambition that this part of the country has to offer. We pride ourselves on our work on widening the scholarships reach to students from more diverse backgrounds and from schools that have traditionally not provided many scholars for the programme. So when I arrived here just less than a year ago, my boss said to me that in no uncertain terms, my number one priority was to support the successful delivery of the Marshall Scholarships programme. Now, obviously, I'm no Marshall Scholar. In fact, I'm actually not much of a scholar at all. But I've been involved in other UK government scholarship programmes around the world, and I wondered, well, how hard can that be? But like the relationship between the US and the UK, the Marshalls isn't like any other scholarship scheme. It's special. And what makes it so, in my experience, has been the people that are involved in it. And I'm not just talking about the applicants. Many of you have been applicants, I know that. They are exceptional. But it's the alumni, and many of whom are here tonight, who freely give their time to uphold the integrity of the process on reading and selection committees and, for example, as fellowship advisors as well. I was privileged to be a member of the selection committee, and it was a truly humbling experience. It's a lot of work, but the knowledge, passion and dedication of my fellow committee members was truly eye-opening. It would be remiss of me not to take the opportunity to thank them for, I don't think any of them are here tonight actually, but which is probably just as well. I had to thank them for their forbearance and guidance as I, fresh off the boat from the UK, struggled to get my head around grade point averages, confused Michigan with Michigan State, which is not good apparently, and failed to grasp the difference fundamentally between a Buckeye and a Hawkeye. It's fair to say that they were extremely patient and gracious, and that I learned a lot in a very short space of time. And we also had an incredible chair who's outgoing, who's not here this evening. I know she'd hoped to come, but she's not here, so I'll spare her blushes. But yeah, just really the guidance of the chair, along with the collective commitment of both the reading and selection committee, was nothing short of inspirational. And I know that experience that I had in Chicago is replicated across the country. So I wanted to say thank you to all of you, all of the alumni, but all of you past and present, who have dedicated your time and expertise to future generations of scholars, and your contributions ensure that we select candidates who not only excel academically, but also embody the values of leadership and global citizenship that we prize so dearly. So the UK-US relationship is indeed special, and as a British diplomat, I'm contractually obliged to mention that at every opportunity possible. But it's built on our shared values and our closely interwoven history. And while today's threats may look different to those faced at the inception of the Anglo-American alliance, our collaboration and partnership is as vital as ever. And the Marshall Scholarship is a cornerstone of that partnership. And your efforts exemplify the enduring legacy of the programme and the spirit of service that it promotes. So thank you again. And before closing, I would just like to again thank the Clark Centre and the Association of Marshall Scholars, and of course the MAC, who should not go unthanked, for convening all of you for what I know will be a stimulating set of conversations over the next 24 hours. And it's now my pleasure to hand over to John Raine, Chair of the Marshall Aid Commemoration Commission, who is here to present the Marshall Medal for outstanding contribution to British-American understanding. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the very warm welcome that you've extended to me. I am the only speaker who cannot stand here and say welcome to Chicago, but I can say thank you for a warm welcome. Nell, in particular, Scott, thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to honour an immensely distinguished Marshal. I'm breaking the fundamental rule of diplomacy. I'm travelling a very long way to give something away. But these are not negotiations, these are celebrations. And it is going to be, in a few moments, with immense pleasure that I give this splendid medal to Governor Cook. Let me first, if I may, say a few words about the Marshall Programme. I am the chair of the Marshall Aid Commemoration Commission, which is a terrific honour. We have responsibility enshrined in statute to oversee the administration of the Marshall Scholarship Programme. That has been going on, as a number of speakers have noted, for now 70 years. So whatever else you might think about the UK, we're getting that right. The tradition in which Governor Cook stands is a very strong one, represented by many of you here this evening. I'd like to add my thanks for the support that you give through your time, in particular those of you who serve on the reading committees and selection committees, and for those of you who've also donated so generously through the Association of Marshall Scholars. The financial support which you have given to scholars has been enormously appreciated. On financial support, I have to note that the MAC at 70 is in fairly good shape. In fact, we're in very good shape. And as many of you will be aware, last year, as a vote of confidence in the Marshall Programme, the British government awarded us a 25% uplift in our grant in aid in order to fund an additional 10 Marshall Scholars. That confidence in the programme comes from the support which has been given by both yourselves and, of course, many not in this room, and the scholars themselves. The performance of Marshall Scholars is invariably outstanding at their host universities and colleges in the UK. They reflect, I think, the very best of the United States of America. Somebody asked me why, after a career of 33 years working for the government and being paid for it, I was now doing it and not being paid for it. I say you should come along and meet some of the Marshall Scholars. Invariably, they give us hope and reassurance in some very uncertain times. They are also endlessly amusing, engaged, and in the best possible sense, up to stuff. What was it in 1986 that we were looking for when we took on Lisa Cook? we were looking the same thing that we look for in all Marshall scholars. Two big things and one underlying thing. Big thing was academic excellence. Second thing was leadership potential. And the big thing underneath it was character. It's not a deal, the Marshall Scholarship. It's not a contract that we hold anybody to, but there's an expectation. There's an expectation that Marshalls will excel in their chosen field, that they will exhibit the qualities and the integrity of a leader, and that they will show character in adversity. Governor Cook, you have excelled academically in universities in the US. You have shown tireless intellectual curiosity. None of us can think of any other Marshall Scholar who has studied in the combination of universities that you have, or whose studies have ranged so sure-footedly across the science-arts divide. You have shown exemplary leadership, both in your academic field, in the pioneering work that you have undertaken, in the critical area of development economics, and you have, of course, shown exemplary leadership in your current role serving your country at the highest level. We couldn't really have asked for a better return on a Marshall Scholarship. But I'd like to dwell for a moment on character, because many can achieve in a technical sense without inspiring others. And as we approach 70, the Marshall looks towards its future, not its past. And our future is the next generation of Marshall Scholars. It's those 50 men and women who arrive in the UK every fall. And they are only Marshall Scholars because they have heard of a distinguished Marshall Scholar who has inspired them to follow that course and to take that risk. So, Governor Cook, you have been already an inspiration to a generation of Marshall Scholars. You have, I know, worked tirelessly to bring others into your field through personal mentorship and through your active sponsorship of training, the American Economic Association. We applaud you for the work that you have done, both as a Marshall Scholar and as a servant of your own country. It is with immense pleasure that I invite you to come forward to receive the Marshall Medal.
Thank you, John. And thank you to the Marshall Aid Commemoration Commission and the commissioners for this extraordinary honor. To be mentioned alongside previous Marshall Medal recipients such as Secretary Madeleine Albright, Secretary Colin Powell, Justice Stephen Breyer, and eminent political scientist and university president Nan Cohen is humbling. The distinction is especially meaningful to me because I have taken great pride in being a Marshall Scholar from the moment I was selected during my senior year at Spelman College. In the years since, I have enjoyed meeting and being inspired by Marshall Scholars throughout the country and around the world. I have also enjoyed reviewing the applications of future Marshall Scholars, one way in which I have taken seriously the responsibility to serve as an ambassador for the program. I look forward to continuing to serve in such an ambassadorial role as a Marshall Medal recipient. Again, I am beyond grateful to to the Commission for the truly humbling and thrilling honor. My Marshall experience completely changed my thinking about my life and career. The people I met had many different interests and experiences and were preparing for careers I'd never heard of until I began my studies at the University of Oxford. I relished learning more about British culture and immersing myself in one of the UK's and the world's storied universities. Likewise, I took pride in the fact that I could share my ideas, culture, and experiences with others during my time as a Marshall Scholar, and I forged strong relationships that endure to this day. Gaining a fuller understanding of the friendship and respect between the US and the UK and the global importance of these two economies and democracies has held me in good stead for many years and continues to be important to my current role as a member of the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors. In fact, I had my eyes on studying in Europe as far back as junior high school, when during Latin class I dreamed of following the Appian Way and other Roman routes that stretched from Britain to Israel to Morocco. I was eager to put my Girl Scout navigation and itinerary building skills to the test on another continent. My first taste of European life came during my junior year abroad when I won a Charles L. Merrill scholarship to study in Strasbourg, France. During spring break of that year, I purchased a student Britrail pass and traveled to London, Southampton, and Stratford-upon-Avon. I met students and other people from all over Europe throughout the year, and I had many conversations on trains, ferries, and beaches, as well as in hostels and homes to which I was invited. I was immensely grateful to be able to do so many things my parents never had the opportunity to do, and I was eager to continue such experiences. As a result, on the advice of my mentors at Spelman College, Professors Ethel Gathie, Marjorie Gans, and Lois Moreland, as well as the president at the time, Donald Mitchell Stewart, I applied for the Marshall Scholarship and was humbled to be the first Spelman student to receive it. Reflecting on the essay I wrote for the Marshall application, I invoked Plato's allegory of the cave from Book 7 of the Republic to describe the transformation in my worldview that occurred during my junior year abroad when it was challenged almost daily. My time as a Marshall Scholar would become the next phase of this ongoing transformation. When I arrived at Oxford, I was excited and transfixed. The bucolic setting of Oxford was conducive to learning and sharing ideas. As a philosophy major at Spelman and longest student of Latin and the classics, I was incredulous that I had the chance to study philosophy at Oxford with a tutor employing the Socratic method. It was a dream come true. I lived with students from all across the globe and made lifelong friends. My studies at Oxford shined a bright light on the subject of economics, perhaps quietly beginning the transformation of my eventual career. In my first Michaelmas term, I had a tutorial in mathematical economics, only my third economics course ever. The economists in the room will recognize the bright pink cover of the Math Econ book that was by Alpha Chang. I learned a lot, and I was surprised that I loved it. Maybe that should have been a hint. However, I did not choose this as my concentration. I had to select 2 subjects out of 3 from philosophy, politics, and economics, and I chose philosophy and politics because I thought economics was much too fun. That should have gotten a bigger laugh. To my most influential tutor, as we called our professors at Oxford, was philosopher of mind and metaphysics, Galen Strawson. Through my interactions with him, he helped me answer the question, how does one construct a meaningful, thoughtful, systematic worldview? After I completed my studies at Oxford, Galen also helped me hone further academic pursuits and advised me on plans that ultimately led me to pursue a PhD in economics. And he was generous with his time and offered very useful advice in comparing American and British economics programs. Outside of my studies, I enjoyed participating in extracurricular activities I did not have the opportunity to participate in high school or in college. Those included the Oxford Union, the Debate Society, and traveling through Italy, Greece, and the Middle East during my spring break of my first year. One of my favorite experiences at Oxford was producing, acting in, and serving as the dialect coach for the performance of For Colored Girls by Ntozake Shange. I did so alongside my still very close friends, Ambassador Susan Rice and Congresswoman Terry Sewell. It was sponsored by the Oxford University Dramatic Society and presented in the historic Oscar Wilde Theater at Magdalen College. As the first time For Colored Girls was performed at Oxford, because it was the first time there were 6 Black women to put it on. I helped actors from Liverpool and Trinidad and Tobago, and some from the US, learn regional American accents. They joined 4 of us from the US in the show, which included singing the Aretha Franklin hit Respect. We sold out every single show. In addition to sharing American culture, I picked up on the cultural influences of the British Isles. Songs from Irish rock band U2, such as Pride in the Name of Love and New Year's Day, seemed to constantly play in the background during my time at Oxford. That exposure proved vital a few years later when I was teaching at Harvard, and 2 gentlemen named Paul and David came to speak to my colleagues and me about debt relief for highly indebted poor countries. Initially, I did not understand why everyone was abuzz about these visitors until someone whispered the familiar song titles in my ear. Those words instantly transported me back to Britain. I was, of course, speaking to Bono and The Edge. While the US and UK share close cultural bonds, look no further than James Bond, Adele, Downton Abbey, Tom Jones, Monty Python, and Bridgerton, the relationship between the 2 countries runs much deeper than that. The Marshall Scholarship has its roots with George C. Marshall and the history-changing partnership between the US and the UK during World War II. It is easy to see why a long friendship has endured. We share a language, for the most part, a history, and a belief in democratic values. Our close economic ties are one aspect of the US-UK relationship that stands out. Our countries feature 2 of the world's great financial centers and share other important connections. The UK is a top destination of US direct investment and is the 2nd largest source of direct investment into this country. The US is the UK's largest trading partner, with 22% of UK exports heading here last year. Our central banks have a close relationship as well. We at the Fed respect and work with our counterparts at the Bank of England, including through the Bank for International Settlements, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, the G7, and the G20. Given our similar economic structures and banking systems, there's always much to learn from each other to help ensure a resilient financial system. Those efforts are especially important to me as I serve as chair of the Committee on Financial Stability at the board. We know economic shocks tend to reverberate around the world, so having clear and open communication with my fellow central bankers plays a valuable part in assuring financial stability. It has been wonderful to have the opportunity today to reflect on my time as a Marshall Scholar and to consider how it more fully opened my eyes, allowing me to pursue my career and my passions. As a girl from a small town in Georgia, I debated and discussed ideas and issues during and outside of my tutorials that I had never done before. I met people from many different parts of the UK and the world I had never encountered before, and who held views I had never heard articulated before. And that, I think, is the very spirit of the Marshall Scholarship and the Marshall Medal: building respect and understanding, and strengthening the enduring friendship between our 2 countries. Once again, thank you so very much to the Marshall Commission for this honor. I am most grateful and humbled to receive it.